So welcome back to episode 3 of the It's Take Two podcasts with your hosts, me, Rob Worsey. I'm a, what would you say? 6'1", brunette.
Tall, dark and handsome.
Jordan, for those that are new,
Yeah.
or those that have just forgotten since episode 2,
Yeah.
what's this podcast about?
We work together as a director and DP duo on any films that you've directed. I've been freelance for a few years now, and we just feel like even in the short space of time that we've been doing this, we've learned a lot, haven't we? Whether it's from the film production side of things, from the freelancing side of things, and we want to pass on that knowledge to anyone else who's thinking of going freelance or who aspires to work on films, just so then we can help prepare those guys and girls for when they decide to make that move as well. Have you watched anything recently that you've really enjoyed?
Quite into Married at First Sight. That'll probably lose us some listeners.
You can hear the doors closing.
Yeah, that's a few people quit.
People logging off.
I'm doing both House of the Dragon and Rings of Power, so that's interesting.
Right.
Because there's a bit of a rival. You haven't watched either of them, have you? So this is going to go
I'm
far.
not asked. Do you think they've released them at the similar times to try and win one over on the other?
Yeah, I think because it's a Game of Thrones prequel, like a spin-off, is House of the Dragon, and I think that was the sleeper one because a lot of people were unhappy with how Game of Thrones ended, and so kind of people weren't interested.
Yeah.
And everyone knew Amazon were making Lord of the Rings, and they've spent, I'm sure the budget's like £1 billion or something.
It's like the biggest budget per episode, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad. And so I think...
Can you tell? Or
some parts of it is great. I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it, but...
You're being careful what you're saying in case you don't get asked to do season 2, aren't
Yeah,
you?
exactly. What did they ask me back for season 2, yeah. So it's not like there's £1 billion on screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's just, I think it's cost that in the run-up to it, I'm guessing, because...
Well, you also soon realise that if you've got a crew of 100 people who are on anything between £300 a day and £1,000 a day, you've raked up a lot of budget there.
Yeah.
And with things like that, where there'll be a lot of VFX and rotoscope and things like that can take a while in post, just the crew alone, never mind cast or locations or props or anything. I recently watched, or I am in the middle of watching, and I recommend it. It's on Disney Plus, and it's Epic Adventures with Bertie Gregory.
Right.
And it's a filmmaker who's going out, basically wildlife filmmaker, and he's going to all these different parts of the world and different types of filmmaking, and he's showing us how he makes those.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's not just Blue Planet, it's him talking about how he's getting the shots, what they're doing. And
really
honestly,
cool.
I'd massively recommend it because I was watching it. I can remember the first time I realised that I wanted to work in like filmmaking was, I think it was Blue Planet, the original one.
Yeah.
And they had a 10-minute section at the end and it showed you how they filmed it. I wanted to film polar bears from that. And that's what my mum will tell you as well. And ever since then, so that when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's one of those shows because she's just looking at the lenses, you're even looking at like the tripod heads. You're going,
it's just interesting to see what they're shooting on there, isn't it? I think.
God,
Yeah.
Yeah, so give that a watch.
Yeah.
It's 5 episodes, about 45 minutes each. When was the moment you realised you wanted to work with a camera?
I remember when I was a kid, if we didn't sit down as a family and watch a film every night, I was like, oh, the night's wasted. At one point I wanted to be an actor.
Right.
And then kind of realised I enjoyed making up stories more and kind of imagining things like that more. And I used to write like little books as a kid, which were obviously terrible, but it's kind of the same idea.
I can remember as a kid, whenever I used to cook in the kitchen, I used to pretend I had my own cookery show. And I used to like tell people how to make a tuna sandwich. Have you been to my mum's house?
No, I don't think so.
So you've got your counter, then you've got like your second row of kitchen cabinets, and there was a gap in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, so what you do? Like imagine there's a whole camera crew going.
Oh my God.
And I used to imagine I had my own cookery show.
That's a bit tragic, isn't it?
I know, yeah. So I think part of me's always like liked
Cookery
the behind the scenes. Yeah, like I love cooking. Like I'd liked the idea of being on a set or imagine something's being filmed or things like that.
So last week,
yes,
we were chatting about, was it episode 2 or episode 2? I was asking about sponsors, and obviously at that point we didn't have any sponsors at that point. We were just starting out. Yeah. But episode 3, sponsors. Do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I think There must have been a typo on the email
Still
address
none,
or
is
something.
it? Still none,
We've not received any.
Still no
I'll
sponsors.
check the email address.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
And I think there's a glitch with YouTube as well because it's just saying 40 views, whereas I think it's missing the final 3 digits.
Yeah. This is nothing. Still no one.
No, so shout out.
Yeah, I suppose shout out instead then.
Yeah. We've made a new friend recently, haven't we?
Well,
Say hello to
That'd be amazing. Absolute nutter. So we've got a new crew member recently.
Yes. Got a new addition to the family.
But in our camera department, we've got a new AC/C cam operator, B cam operator.
Yeah.
She's been doing a bit of everything in the camera department and lighting department.
Yeah.
So it's Beth, our new AC and camera op.
Yeah. This was the first project that she's worked on, wasn't it?
With us, yeah.
With
With us,
Relic, yeah. Yeah. And I think she's just took the opportunity by storm, hasn't she? And
Yeah. And so she joined us as kind of second AC, and she's been doing everything. She's kind of invaluable now. And we've been chatting to her, and we're going to get her on as a guest to chat about kind of starting out and also being a female in the camera team. Our makeup artist, her daughter apparently heard that Beth was in our camera team, and she was surprised. She was like, I didn't know you could be a woman in the camera team, and that's bonkers. And so we're going to get Beth on to chat about that and also her experience working with us.
To big us up, basically.
Yeah, to make us sound good.
It'll be interesting to see how different it is because we've been doing this for 6 years, you know, and like my first time on set with you, that was nerve-wracking, and it'd be nice to hear someone else's, you know, version of events of how she's gotten into a crew, how she's, you know, she took that chance, she was given the chance and she's smashed it, to be fair. Yeah, just hear what she has to say about us.
Yeah.
So,
cheers, Beth.
What are we doing? Cheers. With or without coasters?
Do it with that. So how long have you been freelance for now?
I think it's 2 years as of next month.
That's gone fast, hasn't it? That's gone really fast.
Yeah, it has, and there's been a lot of investment gone into it. And I think it's important to stress that, you know, we all go freelance because, you know, the idea of going freelance is instead of working 5 days a week, you can maybe work 3 or 4 and have more time to yourself. Realistically, I don't think in that first bit of the first year, especially, you're not going to work 3 or 4 days a week because you want to, that's your perfect chance to really get on board and get your name known in terms of who you are and what you do. When I first realised I'm going freelance, I was trying to launch going freelance as a camera operator. I was still doing wedding videography. I'd also just started out the YouTube channel. Then I was on Fiverr with my mate making spreadsheets because we were a bit nerdy, but like I was then trying to make stock content. There were other things of passive income that I was trying to get because I'm thinking, well, if I'm doing 6 things, 3 might work out and then therefore I'll be making enough. I
think there's a lot of truth in that though, in being able to diversify your income so that you're a bit safer. I think 6 things spread across that kind of range is like it did. You know, you're not doing all 6 things now.
No, because I've realised it's physically impossible.
Yeah. But I think diversifying it to some extent is a good idea.
Diversifying, yes, and like transferable skills,
yes.
But there was a few things on that list that I was like, they were too far apart. But I was trying to be very good in all 6 of them, or 7, or however many there was. So I was buying more equipment to cater for all of that. But then luckily a lot of them did work out in the end, and I've got rid of a few now because I'm thinking, well, I don't need to do this, this, and this. So out of those 6 things, which are you still doing now? So I'm still doing freelance. Yeah, that's your main. That's primary, and will always will be. This is a new one. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, so out of these 7 things, I've like. The podcast is one that we've wanted to do for ages. But that's not an income thing. No, that's not an income thing, but that's something that I want to do as a passion because I enjoy it. I was realising that I was doing my freelancing, which was easy, taking up 4 days a week. Then I'd be doing the weddings, which filming would be one day. Then I've got to try and find time to edit those weddings. Then I need to do all the admin side of both freelancing and weddings. My week's already full there. Then I try and squeeze in filming a YouTube video, depending on what sort, can take the whole day, including the piece of camera, your B-roll, all that stuff, product work, anything like that. Then you've got to edit that. Then you want to keep on top of stock. When I started with shutter stock and things like that. You don't find time. That soon went because I was like, there's no way. Then I need a life. And I realising I wasn't having one. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm just going to use this time. We're going to have a period of time where I just put everything into my career, which is good to an extent, but don't completely ignore your own work-life balance and your own things that you want to do in your own time, because then you're too tired to do anything in your own time.
Yeah, because that's a tricky one, especially when you're starting out. You just think, I'll take all the money I can get, because you need to build up that buffer, you need to invest. And so, yeah, you definitely like kind of overworked at points.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And that's why I've not done any of the passion projects with the films.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I can't find an hour, because then if I did have an hour, I'm fucked. I'm tired, and I'm like, or there's always and especially with, and I don't want to downplay weddings at all, because I've loved doing them and all that. With weddings, you've always got the backlog, because you've always got the edits after the day of the wedding. So then whenever I've got free time, for the last however many years I've been doing them, whenever I've got a few hours free, even in an evening after a full day of work, in my head I go, if I get through a bit of a wedding, that'll help me, that'll ease my mind a bit, and I can think, right, well, I've got a bit more done. It doesn't, because you've always got more. Unless you clear that to-do list, then you can fully relax. Even just doing 3 hours when you've got 50 hours remaining on backlog of stuff, it doesn't help at all. And you think it will, but it doesn't.
That's the thing with weddings, isn't it? You're shooting a lot in a short period of time. There's a wedding season.
Yeah.
So you're shooting loads, and then you are backlogged for weeks and weeks and weeks. So someone starting out like me, what advice would you give to make sure I don't overwork myself and neglect the kind of the fun or the reward of freelancing life? Yeah, exactly.
Prioritize what you want to do. Work out what you should be doing as well, because like I say, if you've already got equipment stored away, maximize what you've spent on that kit, get your return on investment on that kit, as long as that's what you enjoy. There's a balance, isn't it? Because it's not always the best job day in the world. You're gonna have stuff just to pay the bills if you're having a quiet month or anything like that.
Yeah,
it's sticking to that plan as well, because you can easily say yes to a job that comes in because pound signs or dollar signs for the international audiences. You just think, oh, if I can squeeze that in, then I'll be able to get that lens that I've wanted for ages, or, things like that. When in reality, that can wait till next month.
Say they're going to invest $5,000 over the next 2 years. What's their priority order? What sort of thing do they need? And what bits of kit would you be looking at the moment? If you were starting out now.
Is this under the assumption that you've got an empty office and you've got zero kit?
Yeah, let's say you've got nothing. Which obviously most people won't be in that situation. They'll have something probably. Yeah. But starting off, what camera?
Mirrorless with some form of XLR adapter. So, Sony have their XLR adapters, Panasonic have their own. I'm sure a lot of other companies do.
Yeah.
Keep it compact. When I first started, I got the Zoom H6, and it's because where I used to work had a Zoom H6. So I was just copying what my previous employer had. When in reality, it wasn't that practical, because there's solutions to it where you can get it in camera. So I'd say a camera with an audio adapter into input, anything like that. You can't just follow the herd of seeing a YouTuber and saying, get this camera. It works for them, and they've probably been paid to say, get this camera.
And I think it depends how much you want to be on a gimbal as well.
You spend a lot of your time on a gimbal, don't you, when you're doing events?
Commercial stuff, yeah. It's quick to shoot. You can easily get movement shots. It speeds you up so much.
So is a gimbal on your list?
It depends what you're shooting, doesn't it? If you're going in to do shorts and narrative stuff, how often do we use a gimbal on our films? Rarely.
Yeah, true.
Used it once across 2 features.
I'd have it on my list.
Would you?
If I had $5,000, yeah. I can remember when I first got the original Ronin S.
Yeah.
And I was like, obviously, any new bit of kit, you go, oh, look at this. But you've basically got a slider, a track, a jib, all in one.
But then do you have to kind of cater your kit to facilitate that?
I think if you go mirrorless, then you don't have to spend a fortune on the top end gimbals. Obviously, a tripod. How much would you spend on a tripod? Because we both just got the Sacklers, haven't we? Which are big investments.
Expensive, yeah.
But that's because we've worked, over the years to know that will.
I wouldn't get a Sackler.
No.
If I was starting. I'd be looking at, there's a few good, kind of budget-friendly Manfrottos, Benros. I mean, just anything in. I think you've got to spend £400-500.
It's the head, isn't it?
It's the fluid head you need. It's all about how it looks once you've shot with it, I think.
Yeah.
You know, how smooth does your footage look? It doesn't matter if it takes an extra 30 seconds setting it up or anything like that. If your footage looks good from it, then I think that's what you should be looking at.
Yeah.
At that point.
Lenses. Obviously, this is a grey area because it's dependent on which camera you buy, you know, and therefore which lenses are available.
I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because it totally depends on what you're shooting. I would say a zoom lens, something like a kit lens, 24-105 if you go full frame, or like a 12-40 if you're MFT, and then a prime lens. Personally, I would go for a full frame 50mm equivalent.
Yeah.
So if you're on full frame 50mm, that's the most versatile, I would say.
Yeah.
If you're on MFT, get a 25mm. There's tons of YouTube. You've done a YouTube video on crop factor, haven't you?
I've done, yeah.
We could tag that
check
below.
it out.
There you go. So I'd get a zoom lens and then a prime lens. Sound wise, shotgun mic, like the Rode Video Mic Pros are great. You can put it straight on camera, or you can put it on a boom pole and just get an extension lead.
Yeah. Let's assume that with a camera, tripod, gimbal, and 1 or 2 lenses, we've spent £3,500.
Yeah.
So you've got £1,500 left. What would you get?
Lighting. Just probably spend the rest on lighting. Lighting makes a massive difference, especially interviews and things like that. Having to work around kind of using windows and natural light and stuff like that is going to be so tricky, but having a reasonably bright light and some big softbox or scrims is going to make it look so much better straight away. Lighting wise, what would you go for?
Again, it goes down to what you're shooting.
Yeah.
If you're on the move constantly, I wouldn't go for the budget lineups of lights that you get.
Yeah.
I think we're both in agreement that COB lights are the most versatile.
Yeah.
But it's completely dependent on what you've got in that pot of £5,000 left, haven't you?
I think this as well, this kind of ties into another topic of investing money. Do you go for the cheap stuff, which might last a little bit of time, or do you spend more and get something of a better build quality? I've been using a little light for corporate jobs, like a little 60-watt LED tiny thing. It was about £200, and the light off it is great, and it's got a balance mount so you can kind of put attachments on. But it was the cheaper version of that sort of light, and so build quality is not there. So the screen cracked, I've super glued that. The battery attachment came in too, I've super glued that. And now the balance mount, one of the things on the front is cracked, and I've super glued that.
I think this is when, for anyone who heard us say, right, you've got £5,000 to spend, what do you spend it on? Some people might, depending on who's listening to this or watching this, which we need to plug that you can either watch it on YouTube or listen to it on various platforms. Yeah. It sounds like a lot, when in reality, with the kit that you realistically need to be a fully fledged filmmaker who can accommodate for quite various types of shooting, £5,000's not that much. Because say at that point we've got £3,500 spent on camera, lenses, tripod and a gimbal. You need batteries, you need cards. If you're watching these videos online of people shooting in 4K 120 and that you can shoot in all intra, you need expensive cards. You could easily spend that remaining £1,500 on cards alone. You then need other grip. You need light stands for those lights. You need an ND filter if it's not got an internal ND. There's so much stuff. Chargers.
Yeah.
Chargers can be a lot of money.
I think when you're starting out, it's easy to think I just need a camera and a lens. And for a lot of jobs, you could get away with that.
Yeah.
And when we're starting out, you know, I started out on a 70D with a kit lens and a 50mm 1.8, the nifty 50, and a tripod.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it worked for what you're starting out. But it's one of those things where the more you invest, the more you realise you need of other stuff. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying with UV filters, ND filters and stuff like that. You don't kind of factor that in at the start. No. So it soon creeps up on you, that money.
Yeah.
Which there's no way around it, really.
No.
It's an expensive thing to be in. It's getting cheaper all the time. It's hard, isn't it? And when you're starting out and investing, is knowing, do you actually need that?
Mm-hmm. When you see famous YouTubers giving tours of their office and they've got cabinets full of lenses and aperture light bags, they've got 6 in a row. Yeah. People think, God, is that what I need to be successful? I'm on my own here. I don't know if I can't afford all that. You start going on CVP or Wex and you see the price, you go, Christ, that's like a year's salary. Just, don't look at those people and go, that's what you need to have in order to be as successful as them. Quite a bit of their kit might have been given for free as a disclaimer, but you have to work your way gradually to get to where you want to be. And it's it's a sprint. It's a sprint, not a race. It's a marathon, not a race, isn't it?
I think a lot of it is knowing what you're going to be shooting as well. Because if you're going to be out shooting broadcast and ENG and news stuff, then you need something that's going to suit that. You can't rock up with a little mirrorless. You're going to need SDI out and Genlock and things like that. Which
could be a 5-year-old camera rather than going for the newest model.
Yeah.
So if you've not listened to episode 1, then that's what we talk about in that brief, doesn't it? And it links back to that.
So here's a question for you. If there was one film that's already out there that if you had directed or DP'd it, you could retire happy, that was kind of your achievement in your career, what would the film be?
For me, I've always had one film that every time I watch it, I'm not bored. I never switch off.
Here we go.
It was my second year student film.
Is that the one you won a cinematography award?
Well, I don't like to brag. Yeah. For me, Skyfall.
Really?
Yeah.
What if you could have directed
if I would,
or DP'd
DP.
It? Yeah.
DP or just being a member of the crew on the set.
Skyfall, yeah.
Because I don't personally, I've not watched every Bond film. I've not, I will do eventually, but for me, I watch that as a film. Visually, there's a massive variety of types of shooting in there. You've got your shooting in London. You've got the scene when he goes, he arrives on the boat into the casino,
right,
where it's like visually, stunning. You've got shooting at night with the house at the end. You've got, you've even got like, old, typical Bond love scenes. You've got every type of like shooting style in one film, but then obviously DP'd by Deakins, who we both love, who will be a guest on episode 496 of this podcast.
Yeah, once we're successful.
Yeah, but for me, like whether it was DPing it, then I'd have peaked. I'd have signed off there and then. But even just working on the crew, I would have loved to have been on that.
I mean, it is incredible, and like you say, the range in there is amazing.
Yeah. What about you?
Probably for me, A Ghost Story by David Lowery.
I don't think I've watched that.
I haven't seen it, have you?
No.
It's so good because it's such a simple film. It's basically an indie film. It's got kind of time-bending themes to it, shot really nicely, and it was done on a budget of 50 grand.
Right.
And I just think if I could do that, if I could have made that film, I'd be kind of like, yeah, I'm sorted. So we'd be interested to hear what other people's are. So, for any listeners, what would be your film that you could retire happy if you had made?
Yeah. As always, guys, thanks for listening on whatever you're listening or watching it on. We appreciate your support. Any messages that you send, it'll just help us realise that we are doing something right and we're not just talking utter crap for an hour. Cheers for listening again.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm not sure about this one, but I'm never sure about it.
Why would you say that? I'll work my editing magic. Hopefully we'll turn it into something decent.
Yeah.